Good afternoon, Powys. Welcome to TLT. Today, we are very pleased to have Mr. Maw Jia Lee to come all the way from KL to share his journey to become an architect and his expertise, experience, and recent projects in architecture. Let's put our hands together and welcome Mr. Maw Jia Lee.
Right. Thank you, everybody, for making time for this. Thanks for inviting me. My name is Maw Jia. You can call me MJ or Mr. Lee. I currently do architecture, and I am on the way to becoming a qualified architect. So today, I just want to share a bit of my personal experiences of getting here today, and also maybe inspire some of you to become the next generation of architects. So, what is architecture? Well, to a lot of people, it means buildings, it means designs, it means being creative. I'm not to say to, no one to say that these definitions are wrong, but it's a bit more than that to be an architect. So maybe I'll shed some light with you today on what architects typically do, but just a brief introduction about the history of architecture and how the profession actually came about, because an architect is actually essentially one of the oldest professions in the world, ever since the dawn of time. Sorry, I'm not used to this. Okay. Since the very beginning of time, when we need shelter, we need protection, our forefathers have actually engineered and designed habitats to actually protect themselves from predators and the harsh climates. Ceremonial sort of edifices. These were way before the times of the invention of paper and pen, so they had to figure all of this out on their own, about trial and error. So, architects of the pyramid, one of the first ones in the world to establish order onto society. Enlightenment. So, if you think of cathedrals, museums, libraries, architects have always been there to play a role into shaping the way we live and how we actually use the cities. And architecture is actually not just confined to tangible physical objects. So in recent years, especially when you look at films like Dune, where this was taken from, or even some films like the Batman films, architects has actually contributed a lot into how all the scenes are being designed and the visual aesthetics of how they want to portray the movies. So it extends to television as well. This is taken from Westworld. And more recently, gaming. So this is Minecraft. Yep. You're gonna do well. So you don't have to be an architect to actually involve yourself in building and design. Right now, architecture has moved at such a rapid pace, it has gone to virtual realities and the metaverse. So just to share with you, this actually went on for about 500,000 US dollars. It's essentially a MP4 file, a video file, panning around a Martian house. So this is the sort of the trend that we're heading towards. Okay, the relevance of being an architect in the 21st century. So population has reached a stage where I think we're approaching the 10 billion mark. And as mentioned before, human habitation is very important, accommodation, buildings. So architects still do play a very important role in shaping the new millennia. So rapid urbanization. So this is a comparison photograph of Shanghai. The top image is taken from the 80s, and the second image is taken from recent years. It transformed from a humble fishing village to a city of mega skyscrapers within just a few years. And, well, climate emergency is something that a lot of architects are trying to figure out at the moment. As we all know, especially in Malaysia, we've gone through flash floods, lots of very harsh climatic environments that we have to deal with. So this is something that all designers have to tackle at the moment. So just a fun fact for you guys, if you want to be an architect in Malaysia, we are amongst one of the worst in the world in terms of architects to population ratio. Worse than Singapore, 7 times worse off than most developed nations. So it's a good and bad thing. So if you are an architect, it means, well, plenty of business for you. But unfortunately, if you want to advance as a nation, if you want better buildings, you want better cities, you want better environments, you do need professional architects to actually do this, to actually bring the nation forward in terms of being innovative in buildings. So just to let you guys know, the pathway to becoming an architect, in fact, for most countries, I would say, you start at pre-U. So do your degree. That takes about 4 years. You do another 2 years, either your bachelor or master's, and then 2 years of practical training. And depending on your luck, depending whether you've studied hard for exams, and if you're among the top 10 or 15% who do pass the exams, you will become a licensed architect in Malaysia. So at the moment, I'm between these 2 stages. So I just did my exam a couple months back, and hopefully things do turn out for the better. And I passed my exams. So just a bit about my journey. I started my part 1 in tailors in Malaysia. My part 2, I did my master's in Glasgow in the School of Art. I worked a couple years in London till Brexit happened. Came back in 2019 and started embarking on my journey to becoming a professional. So just a highlight of some of my works in the region. So I've done some works in Vietnam, Cambodia, some in East Malaysia, mostly in the West, and some projects in the UK. So mostly in the south side, in England, where we do all sorts of small and large scale buildings. So, well, a large part of being an architect is actually to find the balance. So traditionally, even during my parents' time, they think that being an architect is like a marriage between the arts and sciences. So there is some truth to that, where you need to be an idealist. You need to always continue to push boundaries. You need to be creative. You need to have a sensitivity towards arts, culture, history, things that are abstract. You need to be very, very good at your craft. At the same time, you need to be a realist. Because when you do come out from school, you've got a bunch of people you need to work with who are engineers, clients who don't understand anything about the arts, people who juggle costs, people who are in local authorities. So it's really finding the balance between those two to really thrive in this industry. So if you're one of those who's like a mix of the in-between, maybe architecture's for you. So I'll just start off with being an idealist. So as mentioned, I actually graduated from an art school. So that gave me the opportunity to just explore what I wanted. And these are just snapshots of some of my work that I've done throughout my school years up until very recently. So I won't talk about all my projects. I'll just focus on what I call here as the Malaysian House. So I did this project in 2020. Yep, 2020, just right before the pandemic. So the idea that I wanted to portray, because this is actually a design competition hosted by the Architecture Festival of Kuala Lumpur. So about 200 professionals actually joined this competition, including officers. So, but I was young and naive, and I was very adventurous. So I just decided to take this on my own during the pandemic when we were all working from home. So I just decided to spare some time, actually, try to do make meaningful time out of my time working from home. So essentially, the Malaysian House was a brief designed for people to come up with an idea to imagine new types of housing in Malaysia. So for me, I'll try to deviate away from that in the sense that I think a Malaysian house is your kopitiams, your warungs, your mamats, because that's where I think most Malaysians spend most of their time, especially during my time when I was a teenager. We used to just hang out in the mamats until 3 o'clock in the morning, and essentially that's where most Malaysians tend to hang out, and I see that as a house more than a wall with a bed and a door. So like all projects, especially for most architects, we start our ideas off with a simple sketch. So the wiggles of lines that you see on the right are essentially some of my early ideas, which I've sort of developed. So the first drawing is called a plan. It's a top view. So the second drawing is a section. So a section means that you cut through the building. So essentially what I was trying to do is create this large dining table to act as a social condenser in the building with a courtyard. I mean, you've got plenty of courtyards here in Penang because it's very tropical and it really fits it serves its climatic functions. So this is how we typically develop designs, from simple sketches to slightly more developed sketches. And we do something called diagramming. So diagramming is where you start narrating your design. So for us, as the architects, the most important thing is actually to be sensitive to your environments. So when you're in Malaysia, everybody complains that it's always hot, right? So the most important thing is to actually design a building, where the shortest edge has exposure to sun, and the longer edge deviates away from the sun. So creating courtyards and air wells, so you can actually ventilate the building. Introducing accommodation into the block. And then having a roof to provide shade. And in those little 4 blocks, this is an anatomy of how it looks like. Because this building, when I started designing for this project, I wanted it to be a chef's in residence. So that means people who are well versed in the culinary world, especially in Malaysian cooking, they get to actually live here for free and actually get to cook for the public. So this is their dwelling, which is a very typical one-bed studio apartment. And that's how it looks like on plan, which is 4 blocks and a large dining table in the middle. And then you see food stalls right in front of the dining table. And the blow-up will look something like that. So I went to the extent of actually putting human activity just to accentuate some of the ideas that I was going for. So you can see people lining up for food. There's a band right there just performing in front of guests who are using the dining table, which coincidentally acts as a herbal garden as well. So you can pluck herbs, fresh herbs from the table, and use it on their food. So another very important component of the creative design is model making. So you like using your hands, you like putting things together, Lego blocks, or even just arts and crafts. This is something for you. So this is actually part of the submission requirements to submit a scale model, which is about this big. So I spent most of my time cutting myself, finding for materials, putting all this together, and close-up views. So those are actually food stalls on the right, where people are lining up for food, and you can actually see the dining table at the fore. So I created this visual image captured within the courtyard, where the idea is that all food vendors come from different backgrounds, so different ethnicities, coming here to actually showcase their culinary talent. So this is a night view of how it looks like. You get to see people cooking their satay, you smell food, you hear people chattering in the background, probably music if there are musicians around. So to me, that was essentially what the essence of actually Malaysian living is. The house is actually not in the rooms, but actually in the dining space where everybody hangs out, have a good time, have good food, have teh tarik, and just talk. So the end product was me putting a series of panels together as a submission. And I was fortunate enough to actually win the competition. So funny enough, my ex-boss was there. So he got second place. And It was awkward. It was awkward, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun. So, I mean, it will take me ages to explain and break down every single thing about the design. But if you are really interested to find out, I actually have given a presentation already. I think it was a half-an-hour presentation. You can find this on YouTube and all the socials for Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia. So I go in great detail in how I actually come up with the design, come up with the ideas, elaborate on the drawings, so on and so forth. So if you want to find out how we present our works as architects, I think this is a great place to start. So of course it's featured in Arc Daily, which is our equivalence to probably Rolling Stone magazine, but an online version of it, and also in some other media platforms. So that was me being an idealist, but in the real world of architecture, you've got to be a realist as well. So these are just snapshots of some of my completed work. So on the left, we just completed a block of apartments in KL. On the bottom right is actually Park City, Hanoi. So Park City acquired a great deal of land in Vietnam. So I was fortunate enough to be actually working on that project. And the top right, which I will be talking about in greater detail, is a house for one of the richest men in Malaysia, who can spend a lot of money doing up his house. But unfortunately, I can't share too much about his house for obvious reasons. But I'll just share snippets and moments. But before that, part of being a realist, an architect, is the reality of it is that you got to work with a lot of people, and some people just don't get it. They don't understand, like, why is it that you need such a big roof or such a nice space or so many plants, or a certain color to your building. They don't get it because to most of them, it boils down to the numbers, it boils down to cost. Engineers will just tell you they can't build it because it's way too hard. You have contractors who just said, I can't deliver it on time. You got local authorities saying they can't build this or that. So there are a lot of obstacles in between starting with the design and actually executing the project. And amongst this chaos, unfortunately, the architect's right in the middle. So the architect, in Malaysia at least, we're still considered the leader of the construction industry. Like, you need our approval for a lot of things, including authority-related matters and also property and development. We essentially certify payments. We are contract administrators. So, as mentioned, I just took my exams. A lot of people think that architects just draw. All we do is draw, but we don't. The reality is there's a lot of things that we need to understand about the industry. A lot of legal stuff. So if you do like reading, well, this is a great place for you to dwell into. So there are acts. These are all gazetted by the law of Malaysia. There are the National Land Code, bylaws, Housing Development Act. So we got to be well versed in these areas because the client who pays us a lot of money expects us to advise them on these sort of things. So, as mentioned, I'll just show just moments of the house that I was telling you about. So, an example would be this little courtyard area. So, on the right is actually a glass lift. So, the amount of consultants that go into simply designing this glass lift, there's at least 5 of them, which includes the M&E engineer, the civil engineer, us, the architect, the specialist of the glass, the specialist of the lift. So this area took a year to design, and it cost a lot of money, way too much money to fail. So our day-to-day in the office is a lot of a negotiation with the other consultants, discussions, finding out about cost, and then when it does get to site, coordinating with the contractors to get it built, to make sure everything's in order. So part of being an architect as well is you need to be able to be poetic and be able to frame views that you think your client likes. So this client in particular, he likes views of frangipani trees, which are those trees with little leaves, with less leaves, I would say. So he wants views to be very deliberate. And we've got to coordinate lighting as well. Part of the job of being an architect is you've got to coordinate all the works. So this area on the left is lots of lighting, up-down lighting illuminating from the bottom. And when you look at the close-up on the right, it's actually we call it a UFO light. So funny story about this is this project was completed during the height of the pandemic, and because this client is so rich, he wants only this sort of lighting from Germany. So during the pandemic, no ports are working, no airports are working, nothing's going to fly into Malaysia. So we got to figure out ways to maneuver through all this, try to find a way to get these lights, set of lights from Germany to Malaysia, which we did in the end. And the stonework, because the client is very particular about the color, the tone of the stone that he wants to use. These were flown in from China as well. So he only wants this sort of stone from China, which was very difficult, but we managed to pull it off in the end because, as the architect, it's also our duty to deliver the project on time, within budget, on schedule, with the best quality. So, and if you're a client that rich, he doesn't care like how you're going to deliver it. He just wants it delivered. But fortunately, we did deliver in the end. So I think that's all for today that I'm going to share. So thank you.
A big thank you to Mr. Lee, and thank you everyone for coming once again. So it's our time to go back to your classroom, I think. So have a lovely afternoon and see you all again next Tuesday. Thank you, Mr. Lee.